When Muzan was on the verge of death, he recalled how death had chased him throughout his entire life. He revealed that before he was even born, while he was still inside his mother's womb, he had almost died 3 or 4 times. His heart had stopped beating, and the doctors had already declared him dead. Even after he was born, he was pronounced dead once again and was being taken away for burial. But just before they could bury him, he suddenly started crying. Muzan says that he had been incredibly stubborn since the very beginning. He then explains that the moment he had waited for his entire life had finally arrived. His blood had finally conquered sunlight through Nezuko's body. However, he realized that he could not fulfill his dream with only his own body. At that moment, Muzan remembered Kaguya Ubuyashiki's words. Kaguya had once said that everything born into this world is destined to die. Muzan admits that he couldn't even remember the countless people he had killed. Yet, even though those people had died, their emotions, their hatred, and their determination continued to live on. Those feelings united together, and eventually, the flames of revenge became powerful enough to destroy even Muzan himself. As the sun finally rose, tears began flowing from Muzan's eyes. Knowing that his death was inevitable, he refused to let everything end with him. Instead, he transferred every last drop of his blood into Tanjiro Kamado. Muzan thought to himself that if this boy could withstand his blood, Tanjiro would become the strongest creature to ever exist. Right there, Muzan gave this new form a name, the King of all Demons. Because Tanjiro shared Nezuko's blood, Muzan believed he would also become immune to sunlight. On top of that, Tanjiro possessed sun breathing, making him virtually impossible to kill. This new Demon King would accomplish what Muzan himself never could, completely destroying the Demon Slayer core. The moment Muzan finished speaking, Tanjiro's eyes suddenly opened. They looked far more demonic than before, glowing with a pinkish hue that resembled Muzan's own eyes. Around him, everyone was mourning what they believed was his death. But suddenly, one of the Kakushi noticed something strange. The tumor on Tanjiro's forehead had completely disappeared and his eyes had opened. Before anyone could react, Tanjiro regenerated his missing arm instantly and attacked the Kakushi without hesitation. Thanks to Giyu's quick reflexes, the attack missed. Everyone stood there in complete shock as Tanjiro smiled with a terrifying demonic grin, clearly enjoying his newfound power. His Demon Slayer mark had spread across nearly his entire face, almost reaching his nose. He reached out to attack another Kakushi, but then noticed the bright sunlight shining directly onto him. Surprisingly, instead of burning away immediately, he only began to burn for a brief moment. Seeing this, Giyu stepped forward, raising his sword. He shouted for every survivor to prepare themselves because the battle wasn't over yet. Giyu announced that Tanjiro Kamado had become a demon and he intended to pin him under the sunlight and kill him before he could hurt anyone. Hearing those words left Zenitsu and Inosuke completely stunned. Everyone, including us, had believed the battle was finally over, but the real fight had just begun. Without wasting another second, Giyu drove his sword straight through Tanjiro's abdomen, pinning him to the ground so the sunlight could finish him off. As he held Tanjiro down, Giyu couldn't stop wondering why it had to be him. By this point, he had grown incredibly close to Tanjiro and almost saw him as a younger brother. Then, something impossible happened. The sunlight suddenly stopped affecting Tanjiro. His skin stopped burning completely. In an instant, Tanjiro punched Giyu with overwhelming strength, sending him flying across the battlefield. Before Tanjiro could continue his attack, Inosuke rushed in to stop him. He desperately tried to remind Tanjiro who he really was, telling him that he wasn't a demon. Tanjiro suddenly dropped to his knees and began scratching his own face like a wild beast. It was obvious that he had completely lost control of himself. By now, everyone realized that sunlight no longer had any effect on him. Filled with rage, Tanjiro glared at Inosuke. Inosuke couldn't believe what had happened to his best friend. Tanjiro charged toward him at incredible speed. As Inosuke prepared to fight, memories flooded his mind. Every adventure he had shared with Tanjiro and Zenitsu. He remembered how they had become like brothers and had promised that if any one of them ever lost their way, the others would bring them back. With that promise in his heart, Inosuke attacked. But just before his sword reached Tanjiro, he remembered the kind, gentle, and pure-hearted friend who had always treated him like family. His sword stopped in mid-air. With tears in his eyes, Inosuke admitted that no matter how hard he tried, he simply couldn't bring himself to hurt Tanjiro. At that very moment, Nezuko finally arrived. Without hesitation, she ran straight toward Tanjiro and embraced him tightly. But Tanjiro, now consumed by his demonic instincts, drove his sharp claws into Nezuko's back. He even bit her. Yet despite biting her, he never drank her blood. Nezuko apologized to Tanjiro for every hardship he had endured just to turn her back into a human. She pleaded with him, asking him to become human again so they could return to living the peaceful life they once had together. Instead of responding, Tanjiro dug his claws even deeper into Nezuko's back and let out a horrifying scream. Just then, Zenitsu arrived and grabbed Tanjiro from behind. He shouted that Nezuko had finally become human and begged Tanjiro not to become a demon. Zenitsu desperately warned him that he was hurting Nezuko and that she could die if this continued. Moments later, Inosuke joined in and repeatedly punched Tanjiro on the head, shouting that Tanjiro would never willingly hurt his own sister. Overwhelmed by the voices around him, Tanjiro roared once again. This time, a massive shockwave burst from his body, sending both Zenitsu and Inosuke flying backward. Even after the shockwave, Nezuko refused to let go. Tanjiro dropped to his knees as his transformation became even more complete. Bone-like tentacles erupted from his back, just like the ones Muzan possessed. Still, Nezuko held onto him tightly, begging him to return to his old self. But Tanjiro couldn't hear her anymore. Instead, he launched another attack, this time targeting Zenitsu. At that exact moment, Giyu stepped in once again. Using water breathing, he effortlessly deflected Tanjiro's attack. Now Giyu was even more concerned than before. Tanjiro had fully transformed into a demon. There seemed to be no way to turn him back into a human. Sunlight no longer harmed him, and even a bright red Nichirin blade would likely have no effect. At this point, Tanjiro was practically immortal. Suddenly, Tanjiro gathered a sphere of energy inside his mouth, something never before seen in the history of Demon Slayer. Nezuko immediately tried to stop him, but Tanjiro ignored her and fired the attack directly at Giyu. At the last possible moment, Nezuko thrust her hand in front of Tanjiro's mouth, causing the attack to miss its target. The blast severely damaged her hand, leaving it bleeding and nearly useless. Even after that, Tanjiro attacked again with his bone tentacles. Once more, Nezuko sacrificed herself to stop him, forcing the attack off course. Watching everything unfold, Giyu finally realized something important. Deep inside Tanjiro, his humanity hadn't disappeared completely. If he had truly become nothing more than a monster, Nezuko would have already been dead. Instead, some part of him was still resisting Muzan's blood from within. Giyu declared that there was still a chance, however small, that Tanjiro could become human again. He didn't know how such a miracle could happen, but he refused to give up hope. Meanwhile, hidden behind a nearby building, Yushiro cursed Muzan with anger. Even after death, Muzan continued causing pain to innocent people. Yushiro explained that even if he wanted to help, the sunlight would instantly destroy his blood demon art. He couldn't even expose himself to daylight. Just then, he noticed Kanao slowly making her way toward the battlefield despite her severe injuries. When Kanao saw Tanjiro and Nezuko's condition, her heart sank. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small vial. Thankfully, it hadn't broken. Inside was the final medicine Lady Tamayo had created, an emergency dose that Shinobu had secretly entrusted to Kanao in case something unexpected ever happened. And now, that medicine was finally needed. With tears in her eyes, Kanao whispered that she still had one good eye left. If you've been following the story, you'll remember that Kanao possesses a secret technique, the final form of flower breathing. Using this technique places an unbearable strain on the user's eyesight. It can permanently damage the eyes, causing vision to become blurry or even disappear entirely. But to save Tanjiro, Kanao decided it was worth the sacrifice. For the final time, she activated the ultimate flower breathing technique. The instant she did, Kanao rushed straight toward Tanjiro. Tanjiro immediately realized what Kanao was trying to do and attacked her directly, but Kanao reacted instantly. With a graceful backflip, she dodged his strike and successfully injected the medicine into Tanjiro's body. As the injection took effect, Kanao declared that Muzan's story had finally come to an end. She said that Tanjiro was far too kind to make his little sister cry. Moments later, the medicine began working. Kanao collapsed onto the ground from exhaustion. Meanwhile, inside Tanjiro's subconscious, the real battle had just begun. Tanjiro was completely exhausted and had almost given up. He looked toward the sky and quietly prayed, "Please, let me go home." As he reached out his hand, it suddenly transformed into one of Muzan's eyes. Muzan appeared before him and mocked his wish. He told Tanjiro that his family was already dead and that there was no home left for him to return to, only the place where their bodies once lay. Tanjiro calmly replied that his family's memories were still alive inside him. As long as he and Nezuko continued living, his family would never truly disappear. Because Tanjiro had been unconscious throughout the battle, Muzan tried to deceive him. He lied, claiming that Tanjiro had already killed Nezuko with his energy attack. But Tanjiro refused to believe him. He confidently answered that Muzan was lying because he knew Nezuko was still alive. At that moment, the souls of everyone who had supported Tanjiro began appearing behind him. One after another, they placed their hands on his back and pushed him forward, helping him escape from Muzan's grasp. Muzan used every ounce of his strength to keep Tanjiro under his control. He desperately tried to force Tanjiro to remain a demon, but Tanjiro refused to give in. Muzan then changed his approach and began manipulating him psychologically. He reminded Tanjiro that, as a demon, he had already attacked many people. Even if he returned to being human, no one would ever forgive him. Muzan tempted him further, saying that he had been given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Why throw away immortality and return to the short, fragile life of a human? But Tanjiro calmly replied that he could already sense everyone's feelings. No one hated him. He believed that, one day, everyone would forgive him. Furious, Muzan silenced him and declared that Tanjiro would carry on his will. Just as he had manipulated Kokushibo in the past, Muzan now tried to manipulate Tanjiro. He reminded him about the Demon Slayer mark, explaining that anyone who awakened it was destined to die before reaching the age of 25. "If your life is going to be that short," Muzan said, "wouldn't it be better to become an immortal demon?" Still, Tanjiro refused. "I don't want an eternal life without my family and friends. Even a single happy day spent with the people I love is worth far more than endless life alone." Muzan tightened his grip around Tanjiro, trying to crush both his body and his spirit. He asked Tanjiro what kind of future he expected to have after everyone he cared about was gone. Hearing those words brought tears to Tanjiro's eyes. Then, countless hands suddenly appeared beneath him, lifting him upward. Some of those hands clearly belonged to the people who had sacrificed everything. Gyome, Kyojuro Rengoku, Tanjiro's father, and many others who had believed in him. As they pushed him toward the light, Tanjiro caught the familiar scent of wisteria flowers. Looking ahead, he saw Nezuko reaching out to him from among the blooming flowers. He stretched out his hand, and with everyone's help, he finally grasped hers. "It's time to go home." Muzan panicked. He desperately begged Tanjiro not to leave. "We've finally conquered the sun. After coming this far, you can't abandon everything now. You have to stay with me." He argued that so many people had died and sacrificed themselves, but Tanjiro shook his head. "That's not true. They gave their lives so the next generation could live in peace." As Tanjiro continued moving toward the light, Muzan's desperate pleas turned into terrified screams. He begged Tanjiro to stay, but this time, Tanjiro wasn't alone. Nezuko, Zenitsu, Inosuke, Giyu, the Kakushi, and countless demon slayers all reached out together and pulled him upward. Little by little, Muzan's grip weakened. Finally, he let go. Back in the real world, Tanjiro slowly opened his eyes. This time, they were completely normal. He had become human once again. Looking around, he saw Nezuko, Giyu, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and everyone else gathered around him. The moment they realized he was truly back, overwhelming joy spread across the battlefield. As Tanjiro regained consciousness, tears streamed down his face. He immediately apologized to everyone for the pain he had caused while he was a demon. Seeing him return to normal, everyone burst into tears of relief. Inosuke laughed and told him that the injuries he had suffered were nothing worth worrying about. Zenitsu, however, jokingly complained that he would never forgive Tanjiro for hurting Nezuko. Nezuko embraced her brother tightly. The two siblings cried together, grateful that they had finally survived. Nearby, Kanao also regained consciousness. The moment she saw Tanjiro alive, she smiled with relief. Elsewhere, Yushiro quietly held Lady Tamayo's hairpin in his hands. With tears running down his face, he whispered, "Finally, it's over." So, that's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.